All right, this week on the podcast, I'm joined by Jeff Dutremble. Dewey is a Biddeford guy that was a few years ahead of me in high school, obviously a stud athlete, and we get into all that sort of stuff. But I've loved staying in touch with him since we've grown up, saw all the success that he's had, and never quite knew the stories that we talked about on the podcast today. So I think you'll really enjoy it if you give it a listen. But we talked about his baseball career, his post-baseball career, medicine, being an author, some of his passions around fishing, writing, all that sort of stuff. If you know Dewey, I think you'll really enjoy the conversations that we have. If you don't know Dewey, I think you'll love him after you give it a listen. Appreciate you checking it out. This is the Randy Forcier podcast. As always, if you could do me a favor and subscribe. Podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. So super easy to click that follow button, and it would mean a lot. If you're watching on YouTube and you wouldn't mind liking the video or posting a comment, that'd be awesome too. Trying to get this podcast in front of as many people as possible, and I think doing those things helps feed the algorithm or whatever it is. So be awesome if you guys did that for me. And thanks for the support. Here's Jeff. Dewey, thanks for coming on the pod.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Been wanting to for a while. You're a guy that has done a bunch of cool stuff in your life, made some pivots, probably had some big decisions to make over time. So I want to share your story, man. Talk all about it. You're up for it?
Yeah, man. Let's go. Let's dive in.
Let's go. So I should say you are starting a new business. It's Fish Boothbay, doing charter fishing, right?
Absolutely.
And I do want to get to that, but I do want to talk more about like how you got to this point, because obviously you have a passion for that, but like I want to go back. And one of the things that like I always think about with you is just the fact that you played professional baseball and what it's like to be like a high performing athlete in high school into college, and then what that life looks like until eventually it goes away. So like, tell me about that. You were a left-handed pitcher in high school, right?
Lefty pitcher. Yeah, I mean, it started even before that. I mean, my family, my dad especially is, he's an athlete. He's been coaching in the Biddeford system. He was for a while. So he had a baseball bat in my hand when I was a year old, literally, like playing wiffle ball in the hallway and playing catch in the turnaround. So yeah, it started there, and my love for the game just picked up a ton, and going to Sox games. And by the time I was 12 years old in Little League, I felt like my dream at that point was to become a pro ball player.
Yeah.
Right? It's like I felt like I had a legit shot, which, as a kid, you don't really know. Everybody thinks they're going to make it.
Yeah.
But we put a lot of time in on the field, right? Extra batting practice every day, pitching. And it got to the point where, I just got to the point where I was just like, man, I think I might have a shot here.
That's awesome. Like,
the tough thing
was, going high school though, with you ended up playing at Dartmouth. So did you have other options, or you knew you wanted to go Ivy League, or how did that piece all come about?
So when I was a late bloomer, man. So when I got to like freshman year and sophomore year, I was real small, and I think at that point I was like, shit, man, maybe I don't have a shot. Like, it took me a while to develop and grow, but by junior year I was getting looked at by Dartmouth, some of the other Ivies, even some like big time D1 like Clemson and Wake Forest. So I started getting.
Well, you're a left-handed pitcher, dude. Left-handed pitchers. Is a thing, right? Like if you could pick, it would make sense to be a left-handed pitcher that's a stud. Like those kind of are highly desired players.
Yeah, I mean, lefty pitchers and catchers have the easiest shot, right? The best shot to make it. But I mean, I didn't necessarily have my eyes on the Ivy Leagues, but Dartmouth ended up being a great choice. The coach was great. They came to a couple of my games, and that actually was accidental. They were coming to see a guy from Deering.
Really?
And I just happened to have a good game. We talked after, and they came a couple more times, and they're like, well, you have to get your SATs up. I had to take the SATs 3 times to get in. Really? That's not a joke either, dude. I had to take it. Are
you serious? Wow.
I had to take it 3 times. I had to take a Princeton Review prep class and all that garbage to get it up.
Well, you were always a pretty smart guy in high school, right? Like top of your class.
I did well. I was, not to brag, but I was 7th in the class. I was 260 something. My parents were both teachers, so I had to do well. Yeah. My dad would have kicked my ass if I let my grades slip.
No kidding that they're like, we want you to pitch, your grades are good enough, but your SATs just aren't where we need them to be. You have to get them to whatever. What was that number? Do you remember that number? Was it like 1,300, 1,350, 14?
I just noticed my nail polish. That's my daughter, by the way. So
hey, I have daughters. You have daughters. I know what it's like.
Yeah. I guess this day and age, you never know. But anyway, the minimum was 1,250.
All right. I just wanted to take 1 second from the podcast to let you know that besides hosting, I also do mortgages. I'm a residential loan officer with Norcom Mortgage in Saco, Maine. If you or anyone you know is thinking about buying a home in 2024 or refinancing as rates are coming down, please feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to help. My contact information is in the description below. Thanks, and back to the pod.
And that's for an athlete, right? Like, and the average at Dartmouth, I think it was like 1450. I mean, I was, so I got 1100 the first time. Then I took it again. I got 1180. My coach is like, "Come on, man, you gotta." So finally, I got to 1250 and literally 1250 on the dot to get in.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
1250. That's a good score. And obviously better than most people. It's amazing when I think of all the athletes in all the Ivy League schools to think that most of them probably have that minimum to deal with. That's quite a barrier to entry.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's why, it's D1, but it's not big time D1, right?
Not like the SEC.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But no, obviously good athletes, smart kids. What was it like playing at Dartmouth? Was that good? Great experience?
It was a good experience from a baseball perspective, but more just turning me into like a responsible human being, right? Like I feel like in high school, you're living with your parents, practices where it was like, batting practice for an hour and then kind of dick off for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Dartmouth, it was 5:30 in the morning, 6 a.m. workouts every single day.
Yeah.
Classes, right? 4 hours of homework and then a 3 to 4 hour practice at night. So just from a, not necessarily baseball perspective, but just from an independence perspective, trying to live on my own and become an adult, it definitely was a rude awakening. It was, the first few months were tough, man.
I bet. Yeah. I bet. It seemed, when you're an athlete in a D1 school, it seems like, well, I guess, would you say that being an athlete was more than 50% of your life, or, was being a student? Which one took more of your time?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably 50-50. My coach was very big on succeeding academically first and foremost. But it was a full-time job. Baseball is a full-time job, man.
Totally.
I mean, 5:30 workouts. We had to huff it, a mile through the snow to get down to the gym. We had an ex-NFL Giant lineman that was our strength and conditioning coach.
No kidding.
He used to beat the shit out of us. He just, yeah. So that was good. And then, from a baseball perspective, it just took me to the next level. I filled out. I started throwing harder. And my sophomore, junior year, I was starting to get looks from professional scouts.
So that's when it really started to be like, okay, this might actually happen. Because, I mean, freshman year, are you thinking like, I'm just going to play 4 years of baseball and see what happens? Or were you still kind of eyeing like the pros and then it all started to fall into place?
Yeah, good question. I was eyeing the pros. I mean, I knew I had a shot. I think coming from Maine, though, it's a lot more difficult because you're going up against guys that are playing in Florida and Arizona year round, right? So there's definitely a disadvantage. But no, when I got there, I mean, I started as a freshman. And
no kidding.
Yeah, and I got pitcher of the year my sophomore year. So pretty quickly, I started to realize, like, especially as I started to fill out and throw harder, that I have a shot.
Pitcher of the year for the Ivy League?
For Dartmouth.
For Dartmouth. Okay,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's say, holy cow. So, all right, tell me about when you got drafted.
Yeah.
What was that like? Or were you undrafted and signed? Like, I don't know how that whole process worked.
No. So my junior year, I was definitely getting looks. Like, I'd come into my locker room after a game, and in my locker, I'd have letters from like the Blue Jays, the A's. That was a pretty cool feeling, man. It started to like, holy shit, I'm getting close here.
Yeah.
Senior year is when the letters started pouring in. Like there would be 10, 15 scouts at the game behind the backstop with their radar guns.
How'd you handle that? Were you nervous at all, or you just whatever? It just is what it is.
It was weird, man. Like I wasn't. It was actually, I fed on that, and it's hard to explain. Like I probably should have been nervous. Like thinking back and just thinking about it now, I get nervous, but in the moment, it gave me some adrenaline, and I definitely, I think I rose to the occasion.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So I bet, man, that's cool.
But senior year, I had a decent year. I had some elbow trouble, so they moved me to the bullpen, and I still did well. And when draft day came around, it was me and my 3 roommates. 2 other of my roommates got drafted as well that same day. We had it on our computer, and they were going through the rounds, and man, it was exciting. And they finally called my name. Well, 13th round, so not too bad.
Yeah, how does it work? It's like a week-long thing?
It's a couple of days. It's 2 days.
Yeah.
And with baseball, there's 50 rounds, right? So it's just insane.
So 13 rounds out of 50, that's great.
Yeah, I was 381st overall, 381st pick overall. So, I mean, you think about all the college kids, high school kids out there. Not too bad for a kid from me.
Absolutely. So was that the Pittsburgh Pirates? Or
that was the Pirates, yeah. That was the Pirates. And I had gone to a couple workouts prior to the draft. They invited me to PNC Park. My coach, my dad, and I went. I got to pitch in front of the scouts. There were a bunch of other kids there, but that was cool, man. Then they took us to a game that night, got us free tickets.
That's awesome. So, is PNC where they play now? That same park?
Same park. Yeah,
because that has a pretty cool like backdrop, right?
it's amazing. It's
Yeah,
amazing. They got the 3 bridges, right? Everybody, they shut down the bridges. The fans would walk across to get to the stadium.
yeah.
It's a sick park. Yeah,
That must have been awesome. A
it
great
was sick.
memory.
Yeah.
So, all right, you get drafted by the Pirates, and then you just go to the next. Then you must be doing stuff in the off season, I'm sure. But like then it's just camp time in what, February, end of February? Is that when that begins?
So the way it works is I got drafted. It was the beginning of June, so right around the
Mhm.
time I was graduating. Talk about one of the best freaking
Okay,
days of my life, dude.
totally.
Like,
Yeah,
my dad was pumped. He came up. We're obviously just because he was an integral part of me making it, right? So
absolutely.
we hugged it out, and
Yeah.
might have been some tears there.
I'd be shocked if there wasn't, dude. Are you kidding me? That's like a lifelong dream that you're like executing on, achieving. It's awesome. I hope
Yeah,
there were.
yeah, it was awesome. And then I graduated on the 10th, and then a week later, I went to short season A.
Mhm.
So went down
So
to
yeah,
Florida,
you just jump right into it.
right down to Florida. Did a couple workouts, and they shipped me to not Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Williamsport, Pennsylvania, where the Little
Yep.
League World Series plays.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
that's so
just boom,
cool.
game start right there, getting thrown into the fire.
So how long did you end up staying in the
So I
minors?
played one full season.
Yep.
We won the championship. I got a ring.
No kidding. That's cool.
Yeah, it was actually 2001, right? So it was right during 9/11 when that happened.
Yeah.
So we were actually declared co-champions with Staten Island, the Yankees.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were supposed to be playing them. They had to cancel the series because of 9/11, dude. It was crazy.
No kidding. I did not realize that.
Yeah.
That's a bummer. I mean, at least you got the ring and got a chance to say you were a champion. What happened after that? Did you end up having some continued elbow issues or
So was my shoulder.
shoulder?
Toward the end of that first season, it started nagging me. Like I'd come in relief, throw a few innings, be fine, pitch fine. But then after the game, I'm like, man, it just felt like a toothache, like a bad toothache.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got worse and worse, right? I got to the point where I couldn't sleep at night. I had to sleep on my side, on my right side. But then we had some time off. So I'm like, I'll just rehab it, take a rest and come back strong for spring training next year. It never got better.
No
It never
kidding.
got better. I came back to spring training and my velocity was down. When I was healthy, I was throwing low to mid 90s.
Yeah.
Came back, I was throwing mid 80s, and they're like, "What the fuck's going on?" Right? So I had to tell them, I'm like, "Yeah, my shoulder's been killing me since the end of last year, and in the off season, I tried to get it better."
Yeah.
So they had their trainers rehabbing me. We did about a month or two of that in Florida, and it didn't help. So I went under the knife.
Mm-hmm.
And they found what's called a slap tear. It's a labrum. So your labrum helps keep your arm in the socket, right? So when you're pitching, there's a lot of force on that shoulder. I had it's called a slap tear. It's like the top of that labrum gets sliced. So every time you throw, your arm sort of comes out of the socket and back in. It's called the subluxation. Anyway, long story short, it's basically a death sentence for a pitcher. I've been reading
Is it
about
really? Like you can't recover from that. Surgery can't fix it and get your same velocity back.
You could fix it. Like it's not bad now. I can still throw, but I've read all the studies, especially after going to school. But about 3% of people that have it will make it back. But even then, their performance is limited.
Yeah, man, 3% who's a pro. So at that point, you're like, this is it. Like I had my chance, and I had a run for the period of time that I did, and now I just have to kind of pivot to something else.
Yeah, I mean, I had the surgery. I tried to rehab. Like once I had it, rehabbed it. Came back and threw, and velocity was still it was 80, 84, 85. And it's like that's not going to cut it. So they released me. They released me that next year, and yeah, dude, that was tough, man. That was tough.
Yeah. So, how long did it take you till you figure out what you did next, or was that just like you kind of wandering around for a little bit, or like what was that whole transition period?
I would say like that's like the dark ages of my life. I'd say.
Was it? Yeah.
It was just like the carpet got completely ripped under my feet.
Yeah.
I mean, I came back home and it was like, now what do I do? Right. Like I waited tables at Allison's in Kennebunkport, but then, I'd see people that I know like, oh, I thought you were playing baseball. I'm like, yeah, I was. Like, it was hard.
Every time you see someone, and they're not trying to like be dicks, or they're not trying to rub it in, because they're like sincere. Like, I mean, I would have said the same thing. But every time it kind of reopens the wound, and you just have to like,
exactly,
not playing anymore, and then you just decide how much you want to get into it, whether you're like get into the whole deal or it's just like it didn't work out and kind of move on. But meanwhile, it just end up feeling like shit about yourself.
It was tough, man. You figure it's something like it's every kid's dream, right? Well, most
Mhm.
kids' dreams is to play pro ball. Well,
Mhm.
I mean, at least from my perspective, and
It is, dude.
to
It
work,
definitely.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
and then to work so hard and to have it in my hands, and then just to have it slip away. It was, and even now, dude, I still have dreams about pitching.
Mhm.
Play baseball. Then I wake up, I'm like, ah, fuck,
Yeah, dude,
But
I bet, man. But the optimist side is that like you did achieve it and you did reach that level that you did, and
yeah,
it's better than so many other people could ever even like sniff. So, but I totally get that. Do you still follow baseball pretty strongly?
I'll watch it. It's still sort of bittersweet. Like I don't know. I love hockey now. Hockey's my thing.
Mhm. Dude,
And
hockey's like I feel like it's been blowing up. I don't
yeah,
know, man. Maybe it's always been this way, but I kind of feel the same way. And I know a lot of people that I'm friends with that maybe never were hockey people are into hockey now. So
yeah,
I don't know what it is,
yeah,
but
yeah. It's fun. But no, I
uh,
don't follow. I don't. I'll watch baseball. I'm not a big stats guy, and
mhm.
I'll watch it.
Did you ever like? Did your roommates ever make it any further or less further than you, or people that you knew like get into any other systems?
So I'd say the most notable guy that I played with in the minors was Jose Batista. He
No,
was
no
our
kidding.
he was Joey Bats. Yeah, he was our third baseman.
No
Awesome.
kidding.
Yeah, awesome guy. And I knew, man, like you just knew. You could tell when he was taking batting practice, the ball coming off his bat it was like a thunderclap. It was insane.
That's awesome.
But you just knew he had a good chance to make it. Other than that, no. My roommates played a couple years. Same thing. They had injuries, and
Hmm.
they just kind of fizzled away. There are that happens to a lot of guys,
I
man.
bet, man.
Yeah,
These minor systems are big too, right? Like the
yeah,
Pirates probably have what, like 5 teams or something between,
yeah,
like double A, triple, single, and then aren't there other ones too? So
yeah. There's a ton of guys going up through the system, and a lot of guys with talent. That if had stayed healthy, probably would have been superstars. Just never.
totally. So you eventually like pivoted completely, and you said you wanted to get into medicine, right? Became a doctor, doctor, Doctor Dutremble.
Yeah, I mean that
What was
was
the thought on that?
it's a long story, but yeah, I mean, so like when baseball ended, it was like, now what, right? So I did mortgages with Randy
Yeah,
Petty and Jackson and those guys,
yeah,
and then I got into pharmaceutical sales, which I did for
yeah.
about almost 5 years. So I did a
No
lot.
kidding.
Yeah, right in
I
the
didn't
corporate.
realize it was that long. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and that's when I started meeting a ton of good doctors in the area. We became really good friends, and
Mhm.
really got into like the medicine. I still love the medical, like the scientific and the stuff behind medicine. It's just the
Yeah.
actual medical system that kind of pushed me away from it. But anyway, yeah. So that's when I started getting into medicine. I had to go back and take a ton of prerequisites to get into med school. So I took physics and organic chemistry and all that fun stuff. Finally got into medical school, graduated in 2015.
Yep.
Started a residency in orthopedic surgery in California. And I got about halfway through and I'm like, man, this fucking sucks.
Did you already said like the system's kind of messed up, but like, what was the thing?
So one, it was just I was working as a resident over 100 hours a week.
That's insane.
I mean, it was rounding on patients at 4:30 in the morning to like 7 in the morning, going in the operating room from 7 to 7 p.m.,
Mhm.
rounding on patients that night, and then I was on call because it was a new program, so I was one of the newer residents. Not a lot of residents, so I'd be on call. I'd be getting called in at midnight, 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning to reduce a broken wrist and pop a hip back in.
Mhm.
And man, I got to the point where I was just like, man, what did I get myself into?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a lot, dude.
yeah,
I wonder how many people make that same calculation in medicine. I don't know this to be true, but like that's hard. Like it, you know,
yeah,
people must. I wonder if the same number of people are up for that than have historically been up for that. If there's like a lowering amount of doctors or not, it's probably the same old. But like to me, just I can imagine people going other directions in life.
yeah. I mean, the burnout rate's definitely high. I feel like they have to do something. The depression and suicide rates are a lot higher. I
Really?
felt it. I mean, I was going to get help because I was like,
Mhm.
man, this is just awful. You need sleep, right? You need sleep to function,
Mhm.
and I was not sleeping. Right. And I feel like that's just not fair to the patients at all. If you look at the third leading cause of death in the US, it's medical error.
Well, dude, if
Uh,
you're in the operating room from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. after being up at 4, and then who knows
right.
if you're on call the night before, like how good of care is that person from 4 in the afternoon until 7 at night getting from you? You're not on the
Yeah.
top of your game.
You're not on top of your game. So for me, it was a tough decision, right? Because I invested 7 years of my life,
Hmm.
right? Pre-medical school plus med school. And then it ended up being like $400,000 in loans.
Yeah.
What do I do? Do I walk away or do I stay here and be miserable? Because I think it's one thing if I had really loved it, right? If I was super passionate about it, right? Then I maybe could stick it out, but I didn't love it, man. The guys next to me, the other residents, the other doctors, that was their life. They loved it,
Yeah.
right? And I think you need that level of passion to be able to commit that much of yourself to something. And I didn't have it.
Must have been a tough decision.
It was hard.
It
I
must
mean,
have been the toughest decision. When
absolutely. Absolutely. But at the same time, it's like I was married, right? I wanted to stay married. I wanted to eventually have kids, and I wanted to pursue other passions that I had and writing,
Yeah.
fishing. I
Yeah.
wanted to have a life outside medicine, and you have to be built a certain way to stay in medicine, right? You have to be 100% willing to sacrifice everything else in your life to
Mhm.
be a good doctor. And I didn't have it. So I'm like, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm walking away. It's not
Good for
fair
you
for
for making
me.
the decision.
What's that?
I said, good for you for making that decision, dude. Like, it's
Thanks.
just,
Yeah.
it makes me wonder how many people stay in it and are freaking miserable every day. Like you
Yeah.
said, the suicide rates and all that stuff are not great for that profession. But yeah, it's a tough decision to make when you factor in the money. And good for you for making it. Life's short. It
It's too
doesn't matter
short.
when you make it.
That's another thing. I mean, I was doing my rotations in the ICU and seeing guys our age or younger dying from whatever, like random cancer, whatever. You never know when that that day's going to come. And I think
Mhm.
just being in the field
Mhm.
opened my eyes. I'm like, man, I got to get out of this because I'm not happy. Like it's not worth it, right?
Totally.
Like
Totally.
I don't want to be and teach my daughters that quitting is okay, but it is okay in some cases, right? I feel
Yeah.
like there's like a stigma, right? Quitting something, you didn't follow it through, and there's just like, I don't know. For me, it was like, hey, I want to be happy, and if I'm not happy more days than not, then it's just not worth it.
Mhm. There are lessons to be. You say you worry about like teaching your daughters that quitting's okay, but there are lessons to be learned by them for the decision that you did make. So hopefully, like, is it still something that bothers you, or have you kind of moved on from it?
From the
Hopefully,
medicine thing.
no, just from like that decision to take on that debt, to dedicate that time. Like,
No,
or is it
no,
you're at
no. I think for me it was great because it taught me that I'm resilient, right?
Mhm.
Like no matter what I do or pursue, if it doesn't work out, I'm going to land on my feet, right?
Mhm.
I just feel like I'm a tougher person mentally because of it. Yeah,
Mhm.
the debt sucked, but I've chopped it. It's under a half now,
Yeah.
right? I was able to chip away at it, and yeah, like I said, pursue other passions. So I don't regret it at all. I mean, I've really good friends that I still keep in touch with that are
Mhm.
jealous that I left the
Yeah, I bet, man.
medical field, and just the fact that going through it's a grind, man. It's a
Yeah.
grind. Ask my wife. We had dinner maybe Friday night. That's it, and then see ya. I'm at the library the rest of the weekend.
I fear that grind is gonna lead us to having less doctors. I don't know that it will, but
Yeah,
I always feel like, and what type of doctor were you going to be? Are you a surgeon or like a
orthopedic
family?
surgeon.
Okay, yeah. So it's a
Yeah,
little bit different than what I'm thinking, but I think of like a family practitioner, and it's like I always hear people like, "Oh, I need to get a new doctor," and then they go look, and it's like they can't find anyone. People are meeting with NPs, and it's like, who wants to be a family doctor at this point?
dude,
Um,
the money sucks,
yeah, I
right? I
mean,
mean,
for the work it takes to get to that
the
point.
work it takes, the amount of debt people have, it's that's why there's a shortage of family doctors because the specialties pay so much higher. That's the
Mhm.
reason why I want to do ortho, right? Like, I think initially I went to med school because I want to be either a pediatrician or a
Yeah,
psychiatrist, right? Because I was going through some mental stuff after baseball that I had to cope with, and
yeah,
but then I got there, I'm like, man, I could be making 800 to a million a year if I do one of the specialties, or 150,000, right? Which isn't bad money, but like you said, it's a grind to get there, and then you have all the debt.
yeah.
They're fucking scraping by, dude.
So stop in medicine gives you time to pursue other passions. One of them you already mentioned is that writing
Mhm.
is something that you've always loved. And we worked together for a brief amount of time. And I remember you then saying that you liked writing and you wanted to write a book or something along those lines. And I was like, that's fat. Like, I don't know many people that say that. People might like reading, they might like other stuff, but like to actually write. Has that always been a thing for you?
It always has, man. I've always loved writing. My mom's father, my grandfather, was a writer. I
Mhm.
found some of his short stories and poems that he wrote. Man, he's fantastic. So I think I just got that gene. I've
Mhm.
always liked writing. And so when I got out of medicine, I got a job in software sales in Boston.
Yeah.
And I worked for my brother-in-law. He's the one. So I was talking to him. I'm like, man, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of medicine. He's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can get you a job and pay this amount. And I'm like, yeah, that'll be great. But it was in Boston, and I had to commute from Maine to Boston every day.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I got 4 hours on the Amtrak. what am I going to do? Am I going to sleep or just waste my life? Like, no, I'm
That's
going
a
to
lot
fucking
of
write.
time.
So yeah. So I started writing a short story. I started writing a journal to Aria, who wasn't born yet. So every day
Mhm.
I would write like a dear Aria, just be
Mhm.
anything that was on my mind about my
Yep.
day, about my past, about how I was looking forward to being her dad.
So Amanda was pregnant at this point.
What's that?
Amanda was pregnant, and you knew you were having a daughter. So, and you knew
Yes.
her name was Aria.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
actually, I got like 385 pages, dude.
Oh
It's
wow.
crazy.
What a
I'm
great
gonna
memory.
give it to her at some point, maybe when she's
Yeah.
older. But anyway, that sort of like reignited my passion for writing. And you have a lot of time to think when you're on the train for 4 hours every day. So I got the
Yep.
idea for my children's book, which is based on my life, right? It's
Yeah.
about a person that loves to write, ultimately gets deterred by the fame and the money of a doctor that she meets, so she
Mhm.
becomes a doctor, and then she becomes a firefighter, and then she's trying to chase happiness because she sees it in everybody else, but she abandons her true passion in herself,
Mhm.
and ultimately she finds writing again and becomes happy. So yeah.
It's a it's an awesome thing that you wrote. We have the book. I read it to my kids when my kids let me read them books at that point, which is a whole other conversation. Reading is a challenge sometimes, but it's pretty cool to have a thing that you created, with your name on it that is out in the world and
Yeah.
people are looking at it and have read to their kids or their kids have read. Was it hard to get a book made? Was that process easy or?
So I self-published. I wrote, so the first thing is just writing it, right? So I wrote it, edited it, sent it to some friends. They edited it, gave their comments, and then I had to find an illustrator. So finally hooked up with a guy named Michael Loring, who won the main stamp award or something. Anyway, he drew a duck for the main stamp and he
Yeah,
won.
yeah.
So he ended up illustrating it, and then I had to find a printer. So I connected with another local author, asked her who she used, and the whole process, start to finish, took 3 years. It's a long process.
No
Uh,
kidding.
yeah,
I guess I didn't really think of some of the logistics, especially around printing. Because when I think back to the book, like it felt like a normal good book. So like they just use, was it a printer like out of state or is it
yeah. So
some?
the person I used was, I think they were in North Carolina. So I
Yeah.
had to send them like all the illustrations, the manuscript. Then we had a lot of back and forth about the design and such.
Mhm.
Um, and then like deciding how many copies to make. Obviously, the more you order initially, the cheaper it is per book. So I ordered a
Yeah,
shit ton.
yeah. But
Um,
you're able to bring them to the school and
yeah,
do
yeah,
do whatever you've done with them since. And again,
yeah,
it's just it'll be a the girls, your daughters are obviously aware of the book at this point, but it's just a cool thing to be able to say that you did and something
yeah.
they'll always have and something to be proud of. Yeah. Any
Absolutely.
more books in the future?
Yeah, I mean, eventually I'll write some more. Right now,
Mhm.
fishing business. I got I'm doing software sales. Two
Mhm.
daughters. It's not easy to
It is
juggle
not
everything,
easy.
but it is cool. Like to be able to read that book to my daughters and to have
Mhm.
people reaching out saying like, "Hey, my daughters, this is their favorite book."
Mhm.
People taking pictures of their kids reading the book. I've actually had adults write into saying that they quit their job and started something, one of
Yeah,
their passions because of the book. I'm
I
like, well,
bet.
don't quit. I'm like, don't quit your job. Like, don't just. But
You made me quit my job. Now I'm broke,
yeah,
foreclosed on my house,
yeah.
living
My,
with
my,
my.
my wife left me, but no big deal. At least I'm happy.
I could see that though because it touches on it, like speaks to adults that are reading it to their kids at the same time. And if some
Yeah,
people are inspired by that, I'm not surprised.
yeah, yeah. So no, I'm proud, man. It was a labor of love, and like you said, it's just something I'll be able to have and to look back on someday. Like, going back to our point about life is short, right? Like
Mhm.
that was one of my things on my bucket list. I'm like, I want to write a book before I die. I want to be a fishing charter captain before I die. You
Yeah,
know,
let's talk about the fishing charter captain.
yeah,
Um, I never realized this only till a few years ago that you were so passionate about fishing. Have you always been passionate?
yeah, man. I mean, I've been fishing for, so like up in Boothbay, my parents have a
Yeah,
summer place, and
yeah,
since I was a kid, 4 or 5 years old, dropping the diamond jig off the dock and snagging mackerel. I mean, it's definitely addicting. And
yeah,
there's definitely a legit scientific proof that it's addicting. That your
yeah.
dopamine
It's like a
levels
dopamine hit every time you.
exactly.
Yeah,
And I have an addictive personality. Not gonna lie, so I'm just trying to find things that are healthy addictions, right?
yeah,
So yeah, no, I love fishing growing up, but then life gets in the way, right? I mean, I went to college, played baseball, like all these other things are going on, and I could fit, I fish when I could, but now it's like, okay, I have buddies that are doing this for a living.
yeah.
Anytime I have free time, I love to get out there, just be in nature and enjoy the peace and quiet, right? And so I'm like, why not try to pursue something where I can teach people how to fish, like share the experience that I so love with other people that are visiting Maine, or even friends and family.
Mhm.
Yeah, man, I love it.
Awesome.
If I asked my wife, I mean, my wife probably hates it because I'm out there all the
She's
time.
like, yeah, this is great. I'm so happy that you're pursuing another passion.
Yeah, yeah. Can't you just figure it out? But
But the company's called Fish Boothbay,
Fish Boothbay.
which I think is like a good name. Like probably would get good SEO activity online.
Yeah,
And what's your plan for it? Because like you said, you have $2, you have the family, you live obviously in southern Maine. Boothbay is a little bit more mid coast or southern mid coast, and you have a job. So what's the business going to be like? How's this going to work?
yeah. For right now, it's like mostly weekends. We're doing 4 or 6 hour striped bass charters. So take people out, catch some bait, and then try to catch the striped bass. Which are, have you ever caught one?
No, so I suck at fishing, and I have a boat, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So that's why I'm going to go with you. You're going to teach me.
Yeah, man.
I see all these pictures that you post online holding these fish, and I'm like, dude, I don't even know what I would do if I caught this fish, and then I had to like hold it, and then what?
Yeah, no, it's fun, man, and it's beautiful up there. I mean, obviously, like Southern Maine's great too, but Boothbay Harbor, tons of islands and inlets and lighthouses, and so even if we don't catch, it's still a pretty good time.
It's beautiful. Yeah, man. I mean, I only know Southern Maine being on a boat, but just like I was telling someone just the other day, like until I got a boat, I never saw a view of the coast. Yeah, I never went on anyone else's boat, went in Saco Bay or Cape Porpoise or Walker's Point or any of those, or Casco Bay and Peaks Island. Like I never got a chance to view that from the ocean until I had a boat. So it just changes your perspective of the place that you are in, and I'm sure the same is for Boothbay Harbor. So I would love
Absolutely.
to get up there and check out all those little spots that you can only see by boat.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it'll just be part time for now. Eventually, I'd love to do it full time and maybe do something in the off season, whether it's like get back into baseball or coaching or teaching or something like that. But right now, I got to pay the bills and
Totally.
he's into college, so it's not much.
As the girls get older, if they get in this, like for me, like I'm very involved in softball because of my girls, and as your girls get older, if they get into whatever sport they get into, that's always a great opportunity to be able to coach and stuff. I think coaching is the best, but
Dude,
I think
man.
being a charter fish captain is another way to like help people, teach people, relay some wisdom and some learning. So is a website for that?
Yeah, it's fishboothbay.com.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward. And you're right. I mean, I was thinking of a bunch of different names, like, real cool or, but then I'm like, man, why don't I just name it after the place I'm fishing? And like you said, for SEO purposes, I'm already getting a lot of businesses up there reaching out, like bed and breakfast, hotels, restaurants. They're putting me on their site. It's like, it's great. So,
if you want to go fishing in Boothbay, what are you going to type into Google? You're going to type like fishing in Boothbay or whatever.
Exactly. And I kind of get the idea from a buddy of mine, Captain Mike Fockingham.
Yeah, I know Mike.
And he does Fish Portland, Maine. And he did the same thing. He's like, people want to come to Maine to fish. They're going to type in Fish Portland, Maine. And he has nonstop people calling him. He's turning people away. That's how busy he is.
I bet. But isn't that business though? You have a friend that did something that succeeded. It's not a bad thing to like take that and apply it to someplace else, or that's just how things are done. So I think that's a smart move.
Yeah,
man. I love it.
You're combining something I love to do and make a little money while I'm doing it. I mean, it's not going to be like life-changing money at this point, but why not?
Something.
A
little something. I like the idea. So I'll definitely want to spread the word on that. Before I let you go, I do want to talk about Taylor Swift because I want to share something with my daughters after we finish this up. But little known fact for you, like I guess you probably have one of the better like, oh hey, tell me something about yourself that no one would know, or some like unique fact. And whenever someone asks me that, I have like nothing cool to say. But for you, you get to be like, oh, I was in a Taylor Swift video once. Tell me about that.
Yeah, man. Thanks for bringing that up. No, so man, that was a long time. That was back in 08 or 09, right?
I mean, it's early Taylor Swift, but it's still a cool story. It's a cool experience.
The video that I was in really is when she started taking off. And I don't know if it might have been something to do with me. But,
I think it might be.
I mean, so it was just a lucky thing, man. I saw an audition for a country music video, come audition in Portland. So I'm like, fuck it, why not? Give it a shot. So I showed up, this sketchy ass warehouse. It was like dark, and I'm like, what? Am I gonna get a shot here?
You're like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing with my life? Like,
showed up. So there weren't that many people there, but they had us go to different stations. One of them was you had to pretend you were at like a birthday party and you were clapping and like having a good time at the birthday.
Yeah.
The other one was like sitting across from someone else, pretending you were eating dinner and having a fake conversation. And anyway, went to a bunch of different stations. All right, see you later. Thanks for coming. Didn't hear back for about a month. I'm like, oh, it must have sucked. A couple weeks later, I get a call. Like, yeah, we really liked how you clapped. I don't know what they said.
A really nice job.
Really nice overhand lefty clap. Yeah. And so they're like, yeah, we want you to be an extra in the upcoming Taylor Swift video. It's going to be shot in Kennebunk, Maine. I'm like, say what again? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like at that point, I was like, holy shit, Taylor Swift.
Like, did you know? No. Like you said, she was starting to up and she was coming, but like, what did you think of Taylor Swift at the time? Like, you knew who she was, obviously.
Yeah, she still had a couple big hits prior to the one that I was in, which I feel like isn't quite well known as like.
What song is it? Do you even know what song it is?
The one that I'm in?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know what I'm in.
What is it?
It's called Mine. M-I-N-E.
Okay. Yeah. I'll go tell my girls afterwards.
And I actually know, if you really want, and this is going to make me sound very conceited and vain, but
what, you know the exact time? Know
where I'm at in the video, it's at like 3 minutes and 12 to 14 seconds.
Okay. So that's what it is. It's like you are an extra in this video. You're not like the main guy in it. No. I don't even know if there is a main guy, but
there's a main guy. There's a main guy. I think they made a mistake with the selection. So we shot it it's on Dane Street. So off of Main Street in Kennebunk, the downtown Main Street. There's a little side road called Dane Street. And there's a white church there.
Okay.
And that's where it was filmed. So the whole premise of the video is she has a boyfriend and they're in love, but then they're fighting, and finally he proposes, they get married. So the scene that I'm in, they're getting married and they're coming out of the church, and I'm a guest at the wedding, and I'm just like so fired up that she got married.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm literally there we were there for about 4 hours doing take after take after take. And so I'm thinking, that's going to be, I'm going to be in there for like, at least 10, 15 seconds. Dude, it's like a half second, right?
What, a second?
Yeah.
What an incredible amount of work that has to go into this, to think that, outside of all the other logistics of her life and whatever, but like they have to put out this casting call, do an audition in the warehouse, 4 hours on site, and like that's what, at least what you're on there for a second. Was the guy that was her boyfriend, was he part of that audition that you went to, or they?
No, he was like a famous actor overseas. Okay. I never heard of him, but evidently he was like, the up and coming guy overseas. This guy's nuts. But
you're that guy.
But no, like that scene that I was in was 4 hours, and then there were the other so she must have been shooting for 3 or 4 days to get the whole video. But then the cool thing was we got invited to the TRL launch of the video. So Amanda and I, we got to take this bus with everybody else, and we went. It was on George Bush's compound in Kennebunkport.
Yeah,
thousands of people. We were right in the front row. They had a stage set against the backdrop of the ocean. Taylor Swift's up there. We're front row. She's singing the song. They had cameras, and it was.
So this is months down the line.
This is months down the line when the video.
She came back to do this. Wow,
she came back. She loves Maine. No
kidding.
Yeah, we keep in touch. She's a good kid.
Did you get a chance to meet? Like, you talk to her at all? They're just like, don't look. It's like, don't look Taylor in the eyes.
No, we had a chance to chat. She's awesome. She's so humble and cool. Even like when the camera was off, treated everybody. It seemed like she was treating everybody really, really nice. Like I know there are a lot of haters out there, but
there's probably more people that like her than hate, but people love to hate.
Haters gonna hate.
Anything that people love, there will be a bunch of people that hate it. So I know my girls certainly love her, and I'll share this with them. They'll get a kick out of it. But that's a great story, dude. Fun stuff, man.
It was fun, man. It was fun. Something to just kind of joke around. And like whenever I'm at a new company, and like with Klaviyo or company now, they always do like 2 truths and a lie to try to get to know you, the new person. So I always throw that in. No one gets that. No one, they're like, oh, that's bullshit.
Dude, like I am jealous of your ability to throw that in situations like that. Like I always joke when people ask me that sort of stuff. It's something dumb, and you get like a very, very good one. So that's awesome. Listen, dude, thank you for coming on the podcast, man. It's fun. Like, I think that I know a bunch of stuff about you, and then I learned a bunch of new cool stuff today. So I appreciate you sharing it.
Dude, absolutely, man. This was fun. Yeah, it's good to catch up.
It's not too bad, right? And I'll make sure I share the Fish Boothbay stuff, right? Like, there's a whole bunch of people in our area that it'll be good to get this out in front of them too. So hopefully it helps spread the word a little bit more for you.
Yeah, 100%.
So, all right, buddy. We'll talk soon. Thanks again.
All right, dude. See you, Forrest.